10 years of silence. One rain-soaked hallway. The woman who destroyed him is standing in his daughter's school, and she's been watching them all along. If you want to see how far this story travels, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments below. Let's see where we're watching from tonight. The fluorescent lights in Jefferson Elementary's main hallway flickered like they always did after 5 o'clock, casting uneven shadows across the scuffed linoleum. Ethan Cole shoved through the double doors with his shoulder, rain dripping from his jacket onto the floor. He was late. Again. "Shit," he muttered, checking his phone. 5:47 p.m. The parent-teacher conference had started 17 minutes ago. His work boots squeaked as he jogged down the corridor, past construction paper turkeys and hand-traced leaves taped to bulletin boards. The smell hit him first, that distinct elementary school combination of cafeteria food, floor cleaner, and pencil shavings. He'd been in this building 100 times over the past 3 years, ever since Maya started first grade, but tonight something felt different. Wrong, maybe. Or just off in a way he couldn't name. Room 214 was at the end of the hall, door half open, warm light spilling out. Through the narrow window, he could see Ms. Peterson's desk, covered in folders and coffee mugs shaped like apples. His daughter's teacher was probably wondering where the hell he was. Ethan slowed his pace as he approached, catching his breath, trying to look less like a disaster. He ran a hand through his wet hair, pushing it back from his forehead. Water droplets hit his collar. The site had run late today. They always did when Thompson was project lead, and he'd barely had time to throw his tools in the truck before speeding across town. No time to change, no time to look presentable. Just another day in the life of a guy who couldn't quite get his shit together, no matter how hard he tried. He reached for the door handle and froze. Through the window, he saw her. Not Miss Peterson. Her. The world tilted sideways. His hand stayed suspended in midair, fingers inches from the metal, unable to move forward or pull back. His lungs forgot how to work. Time did this weird thing where it stretched and compressed simultaneously, like his brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. Adriana. 10 years. 10 goddamn years, and there she was, standing in his daughter's classroom, like she belonged there, like she had any right to be there. She looked different. Older, obviously, but that wasn't it. Her dark hair was shorter, cut in some sleek style that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She wore a charcoal suit that fit like it was made for her, and it probably was. Everything about her screamed money now, power, the kind of success that came with corner offices and private assistants. She'd always been beautiful in that dangerous way that made smart men stupid, but now there was something else. Authority. Presence. The kind of confidence that came from owning rooms full of people who were scared of disappointing you. She was talking to Ms. Peterson, gesturing at something on the desk. Smiling. That smile still did things to his chest that he didn't want to think about. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs like it was trying to punch its way out, his hands curled into fists at his sides. Move, he told himself. Walk away. Turn around and leave before she sees you. But he couldn't, because right next to Adriana, sitting in one of those tiny kid chairs, was Maya, his daughter, his whole world. 8 years old with gap-toothed grin and her mother's eyes. Not Adriana's, never Adriana's, but Sarah's eyes. Sarah who died giving birth to her. Sarah who Ethan had loved in the quiet, steady way you love someone who saves you from drowning. Maya was showing Adriana something in her notebook. Animated, excited, completely at ease. Like they knew each other. Like this woman was someone familiar. The rage hit him so hard, he actually stumbled backward a step. How long had this been going on? How many times had Adriana been here, in this building, near his daughter, without him knowing? The woman who'd vanished from his life without explanation, without a word, without even a goddamn text message. That woman was sitting 3 feet from Maya like they were old friends. He must have made a noise, or maybe his shadow crossed the threshold, because Ms. Peterson looked up. Her eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Cole, you made it! Come in, come in!" She stood, smoothing her cardigan, but there was something in her expression. Nervousness, maybe, or guilt. Adriana's head turned, their eyes met. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, her composed mask cracked. He saw shock there, maybe fear, definitely recognition. Then it was gone. replaced by something carefully neutral. Daddy! Maya launched herself out of the chair and across the room, wrapping her arms around his waist. You're here. Miss Vale was just showing me pictures from when she worked in Italy. She said she helped build a school there, just like you build houses. Ms. Vale. The name hit him like a fist to the stomach. She'd changed it, or maybe gone back to her maiden name, Adriana Vale. Not Adriana Ross, the name she'd had when she'd shared his bed and his life, and every secret he'd ever told another human being. Hey, baby girl. His voice came out rougher than he intended. He wrapped one arm around Maya, keeping her close, keeping himself between her and the woman who'd destroyed him. Sorry I'm late. Sight ran long. It's fine. Miss Peterson was doing that thing teachers did when they sensed tension, talking too fast, too bright. We were just discussing Maya's progress this semester. She's doing wonderfully in math, and her reading comprehension is really... What are you doing here? Ethan's words cut across the teacher's rambling. He wasn't looking at Miss Peterson. His eyes were locked on Adriana. She stood slowly, gracefully, like she had all the time in the world. Up close, he could see the subtle lines at the corners of her eyes, the faint scar on her left temple that hadn't been there before. Evidence of a life lived, years past, time that had moved forward for both of them. Mr. Cole? Her voice was exactly the same, low, controlled, with that slight rasp that used to drive him crazy. It's good to see you. Don't! The word came out sharp enough that Maya flinched against him. He forced himself to breathe, to lower his voice. Don't do that. Don't act like this is normal. Miss Peterson cleared her throat. Mr. Cole, Miss Vale has been volunteering with our community outreach program this semester. She's been tremendously helpful with... How long? He was still staring at Adriana, watching her face, trying to find some tell, some sign of what she was thinking. How long have you been here? 3 months. Adriana's hands were clasped in front of her, perfectly still. No fidgeting, no nervous gestures. She'd learned to control that, apparently. I've been working with the school on a literacy initiative. Maya's class was one of several. I've been... Get out! Maya pulled back, looking up at him with confused eyes. Daddy, what's wrong? Miss Vale is nice. She's been helping us with... Maya, go wait in the hallway. But now. His daughter's face crumpled. He hated himself for it, hated the way her lower lip trembled, hated that he was scaring her. But he couldn't do this with her in the room. Couldn't have this conversation where she might hear things that would break her the way he'd been broken. Ms. Peterson touched Maya's shoulder gently. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go see if the art room is still open. I bet Mrs. Chen left some of those colored pencils you like. Maya looked between Ethan and Adriana, clearly trying to understand what was happening, why her father was acting like this. Finally, she nodded and let Ms. Peterson lead her out. The door clicked shut behind them. Silence filled the room like water. You need to leave. Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper now. Right now. And you need to stay away from my daughter. She's remarkable. Adriana hadn't moved. Smart, creative, kind. You've done an incredible job raising her. Don't you dare. He took a step forward. Don't you fucking dare act like you have any right to comment on my daughter, on my life, on anything about me. You left. You were gone. You don't get to come back now, and... His throat closed up. He couldn't finish. I know. You know? That's it? That's all you've got? The anger was bubbling up now, hot and acidic. 10 years, Adriana. 10 years without a word. I came home one day and you were gone. Your clothes, your books, that stupid coffee mug you loved. All of it. Just gone. Like you'd never existed. I called your phone for months. Months. It just rang and rang. I went to your sister's place, your friends. Everyone we knew. Nobody would tell me anything. It was like you'd vanished off the face of the earth. I had to go. You had to go. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. Yeah, that explains everything. Thanks for clearing that up. Ethan. No. He shook his head. You don't get to say my name like that. Like there's still anything between us. There will always be something between us. Her voice stayed level, but something flickered in her eyes. Whether you want there to be or not. The only thing between us is 10 years of nothing, of me wondering what the hell I did wrong, of thinking maybe I wasn't enough, maybe I said something, did something, drove you away somehow. You know what that does to a person? spending years analyzing every conversation, every moment, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why? The question came out raw, stripped of anger, just pure hurt. Why did you leave like that? Adriana looked away for the first time. She walked to the window, staring out at the parking lot, at the rain falling in sheets under the streetlights. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. Because I loved you too much to destroy you. What the hell does that mean? It means, she paused, choosing words carefully. It means my life was complicated in ways you didn't know about. Dangerous ways. And the people I was involved with, the things I was running from, if I'd stayed, if I'd let you get pulled into that world, you would have been collateral damage. I wasn't going to let that happen. Ethan stared at her back, at the rigid line of her shoulders, trying to process what she was saying. Dangerous? What are you talking about? You worked at a nonprofit. You volunteered at soup kitchens. You were the most normal person I'd ever met. I wasn't. She turned back to face him. Everything you knew about me was a lie, or at least a version of the truth edited to keep you safe. My family, Ethan, they're not good people. And when they found out about you, about us, they made it very clear what would happen if I didn't disappear. So you just left without even giving me a choice? What choice was there? Stay and watch you get hurt? Watch them use you to control me? I couldn't. Her voice broke slightly, the first real crack in her composure. I couldn't be the reason something happened to you. That's convenient. The anger was back, sharp and bitter. Real convenient. You get to play the martyr, the hero who sacrificed everything to protect me. Did it ever occur to you that I might have wanted to fight? That I might have wanted to make my own choice about what risks I was willing to take? You don't understand the kind of people. You're right, I don't, because you never gave me the chance to understand anything. You made the decision for both of us, and then you disappeared. That's not protection, Adriana. That's cowardice. She flinched. It was barely visible, just a slight tightening around her eyes, but he saw it. Good. He wanted her to feel even a fraction of what he'd felt. And now what? He spread his hands. You just show up here, in my daughter's school, like the past decade didn't happen? Were you ever going to tell me you were back? Or were you just going to keep lurking around Maya, volunteering, being helpful, playing whatever game this is? It's not a game. Then what is it? Adriana was quiet for a long moment. The rain hammered against the window, filling the silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, vulnerable in a way he'd never heard before, not even in their most intimate moments. I never stopped watching. After I left, I kept track of you, made sure you were safe, that you were okay. I know. She took a breath. I know about Sarah. I know she died in childbirth. I know you raised Maya alone. I know you lost the apartment on 5th Street and had to move to the cheaper place across town. I know you work for Donovan Construction and you've been there 6 years. I know you take Maya to Rosie's Diner every Sunday for pancakes. I know everything, Ethan, because I never really left. I just stayed in the shadows. The words hit him like a physical blow. His mind reeled, trying to comprehend what she was saying. She'd been watching. For 10 years. Keeping tabs on his life while staying invisible herself. He couldn't find words. That's insane. You realize that's completely insane, right? Probably. Definitely. He ran both hands through his hair, pacing now, needing to move. Jesus Christ, Adriana, you've been stalking me for a decade? Protecting you. That's not protection. I don't even know what that is. It's creepy and controlling and so far past normal that I can't even. He stopped, a new thought occurring to him. Wait, Maya, you said you've been volunteering for 3 months, but you knew about her before that. You said you knew I raised her alone. How long have you been watching my daughter? Adriana's silence was answer enough. Since she was born. It wasn't a question. He could see it in her face, in the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes. You've been watching Maya since she was born, 8 years. You've been watching my daughter for 8 years without ever letting me know you existed. I had to make sure she was safe. From what? From who? His voice rose despite his efforts to keep it down. Your mysterious, dangerous family? If they were such a threat, why would you risk coming back now? Why start volunteering at her school where anyone could see you, recognize you, whatever? Because they're gone. The words came out flat, final. The people who were a threat, they're not anymore. It took me 10 years, but I dealt with them, made sure they couldn't hurt anyone ever again. And once that was done, once I knew it was safe, I couldn't stay away anymore. I had to. She stopped, swallowed hard. I had to see you. Had to know if you were really okay, if Maya was really okay. Not through reports or surveillance or secondhand information, but with my own eyes. Ethan wanted to keep being angry, wanted to hold on to the rage because it was cleaner than the mess of other feelings swirling underneath. But something about the way she said it, the exhaustion in her voice, made it harder. You should have called, sent a letter, something. Anything but this. Would you have read it? Would you have listened? I don't know. Maybe not, but at least it would have been honest. This, showing up at Maya's school, volunteering, getting close to her without telling me, this isn't honest. This is manipulation. You're right. The admission surprised him. You're absolutely right. I should have contacted you first. Should have given you the choice about whether you wanted me anywhere near your life again. But I was afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd say no. That you'd tell me to stay away and I'd never get to see her, see you. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes that made his chest tight. I know I don't have any right to be here. I know I gave up that right when I left. But I need you to understand. I didn't stop loving you because I left. I left because I loved you. And watching you from a distance these past 10 years, seeing you raise Maya, seeing the kind of father you are, the kind of man you've become, her voice cracked again. It only made it worse. Stop. He held up a hand. Just stop. I can't do this. I can't hear about how hard it's been for you when you made the choice. When you decided to walk away. I know. No, I don't think you do. He moved closer, closing the distance between them until he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, could smell that same perfume she'd always worn, jasmine and something darker, richer. I loved you. Completely. Stupidly. In the kind of way that people write bad poetry about. And when you left, it broke something in me that I don't think ever healed properly. I had to build my life back from nothing, had to figure out how to be a person again. And then Sarah came along and she was kind and patient, and she helped me remember what it felt like to be whole. We weren't, he paused, needing her to understand this. We weren't what you and I were, but she was good, and she gave me Maya. And then she died, and I had to figure out how to be whole again, how to be a father, when I was still figuring out how to be myself. Adriana's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about Sarah, about all of it. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't give me back those years. Doesn't explain why you thought disappearing was better than trusting me to handle the truth. He stepped back, putting distance between them again because being close to her made it hard to think. And it definitely doesn't explain why you think you have any place in Maya's life now. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you. She straightened her shoulders, pulling the professional mask back into place. But Maya deserves to know what? That some stranger has been watching her since she was born? That her father's ex-girlfriend decided to play guardian angel without permission? What exactly does my daughter need to know about you? Adriana opened her mouth, then closed it. Something passed across her face, something complicated and painful. Nothing. You're right. She doesn't need to know anything. Good. Then we're done here. He walked to the door, hand on the handle, ready to leave and never look back. But something made him stop. Some stupid, self-destructive part of him that still remembered what it felt like to love her. Why now? If you've been watching all this time, why wait until now to make contact? What changed? I'm dying. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan turned slowly. What? Not immediately. Not tomorrow or next month. But I have... She touched her temple briefly, that unconscious gesture explaining the scar he'd noticed earlier. There was an accident, part of dealing with the people I mentioned. It left me with some damage that can't be fixed. The doctors give me maybe 5 years, maybe less. He wanted to feel nothing, wanted the anger to insulate him from caring, but the words still hit like a gut punch. Adriana, I didn't tell you for sympathy. I'm telling you because you asked why now, and that's the answer. I don't have time anymore to watch from a distance, to pretend like I don't exist in your life. I've wasted 10 years being afraid, being careful, keeping my distance to protect you. But if I only have 5 years left, I'm not wasting them anymore. She met his eyes with something fierce burning in hers. I want to know her, your daughter. I want to know Maya before I run out of time. Not as her mother, I have no right to that, but as someone who cares about her, who's watched her grow up and wants to be part of her life in whatever way you'll allow. Ethan's thoughts scattered in a dozen directions. Part of him wanted to throw her out, tell her she'd given up any claim to sympathy when she vanished a decade ago. Part of him wanted to grab her shoulders and shake her for dropping this bomb like it was just another piece of information. And part of him, the part he hated most, wanted to pull her close and tell her everything would be okay, even though he had no idea if that was true. I need time. The words came out hoarse. I need time to think about this, to figure out what it means and what I'm supposed to do with it. I understand. Do you? Because I don't. I don't understand any of this. I don't understand how you can show up after 10 years and expect... He stopped, shook his head. Never mind. It doesn't matter what you expect. What matters is Maya, and I need to figure out what's best for her, not for me, not for you, for her. That's all I want. For you to consider what might be best for Maya. Don't pretend this is about her. The anger flared again, hot and quick. This is about you. About your guilt, your regrets, your need to make peace before you die. If you really cared about what was best for Maya, you would have stayed away. You would have let us have our life without dragging all this back up. Maybe you're right. Adriana picked up her purse from Miss Peterson's desk. Designer, expensive, just like everything else about her now. Maybe I am being selfish, but I've spent 10 years being selfless, and look where it got me, alone, dying, watching the people I love from a distance like some kind of ghost. She walked toward the door, toward him, and stopped just a foot away. I'm done being a ghost, Ethan. I'm here, I'm real, and I'm not leaving again unless you tell me to. So think about what you want, what Maya needs, and then tell me. But don't take too long, because unlike you, I actually know how much time I have left, and I'm not wasting any more of it. She walked past him, close enough that he could feel the heat of her body, smell that jasmine perfume. Then she was gone, footsteps echoing down the hallway until they faded into nothing. Ethan stood frozen in the empty classroom, surrounded by Maya's artwork on the walls and spelling tests pinned to bulletin boards. His hands were shaking, his heart was racing, and his mind was a mess of contradictions, anger and sympathy, hatred, and something dangerously close to the feeling he'd spent 10 years trying to bury. The door opened. Miss Peterson poked her head in cautiously. Mr. Cole, is everything okay? No. He laughed, but it came out broken. No, everything is definitely not okay. Maya's in the art room. She's asking about you. Right. Maya, his daughter, the one person in all this mess who actually mattered. He straightened up, wiped his face, even though there weren't tears, not yet anyway, and forced himself to breathe normally. Yeah, okay, I'm coming. He walked out of the classroom, down the hallway, toward the art room where his daughter was waiting. But with every step he could feel Adriana's presence like a shadow at his back. She'd been there all along, apparently. Watching. Waiting. And now she was back, not as a memory or a ghost, but as something real and complicated and impossible to ignore. He didn't know what he was going to do. Didn't know if he could let her into Maya's life, into his life, after everything. Didn't know if forgiveness was even possible. But as he pushed open the art room door and saw Maya's face light up at the sight of him, one thing became crystal clear. Whatever choice he made, it had to be for her. Not for him. Not for Adriana. For the 8-year-old girl who deserved better than to be caught in the middle of a 10-year-old catastrophe. Daddy! Maya jumped down from the table where she'd been coloring. Are you mad at Ms. Vale? You seemed really mad. He knelt down, eye level with his daughter, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. I'm not mad, baby girl, just surprised. Miss Vale and I knew each other a long time ago, and seeing her was unexpected. Oh. Maya processed this with the serious expression she got when working through something important. Were you friends? Something like that. Are you still friends? He had no idea how to answer that. I'm not sure yet. We need to figure some things out. Okay. She accepted this with the easy trust of childhood. Can we get pizza on the way home? I'm really hungry. Yeah, pizza sounds good. They walked out together, hand in hand, into the rainy night. But as Ethan helped Maya into the truck and buckled her seatbelt, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything had changed, that the life he'd carefully built over 10 years, stable, predictable, safe, was about to get turned upside down. Because Adriana Vale wasn't a ghost anymore. She was real, she was here, and she was dying. And he had absolutely no idea what the hell he was supposed to do about any of it. The pizza sat mostly untouched on the kitchen table, grease congealing in the cardboard box. Maya had eaten one slice before declaring herself full and disappearing into her room with her backpack. Ethan stared at his own plate, the pepperoni looking back at him like accusatory eyes. His phone buzzed. He'd been ignoring it for the past hour, but this time he glanced at the screen. Unknown number. His thumb hovered over the decline button, then stopped. He knew who it was. Somehow, he just knew. He answered without saying anything. It's me. Adriana's voice came through clear, composed. I know you said you needed time, but there are things you should know. Things I couldn't say in that classroom. How did you get this number? Does it matter? He almost hung up, should have hung up, but his finger stayed frozen over the red button. What things? Not over the phone. Can we meet? Tomorrow, maybe. Somewhere public if that makes you more comfortable. I'm not comfortable with any of this. I know, but you deserve the full story, Ethan, not just the pieces I gave you tonight. If you're going to make a decision about whether I can be part of Maya's life, you need to know everything. He leaned back in the chair, the old wood creaking under his weight. Through the doorway, he could see Maya's door, covered in stickers and drawings. His daughter. His responsibility. His choice to make. There's a diner on Maple Street, Benny's, tomorrow, 7 a.m. I have to be on site by 8:30, so you've got an hour. That's it. I'll be there. She hung up before he could change his mind. Ethan set the phone down and pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes until he saw spots. What the hell was he doing? Meeting her was a mistake. Listening to her was a mistake. The smart thing would be to block her number, tell the school she wasn't allowed near Maya, move on with their lives like tonight had never happened. But he'd never been good at doing the smart thing. Not when it came to her. Daddy! Maya's voice made him drop his hands. She stood in the doorway wearing her pajamas, the ones with the planets on them that she'd insisted she wasn't too old for. Are you okay? Yeah, baby girl. Just tired. She patted across the kitchen in her bare feet and climbed into his lap, even though she was getting too big for this, her legs dangling almost to the floor. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and kid sweat. You seem sad, she said, playing with the zipper on his jacket. Is it because of Ms. Vale? He should have known she'd bring it up. Maya noticed everything, remembered everything. It was one of the things that made her remarkable and occasionally exhausting. It's complicated, sweetheart. That's what grown-ups always say when they don't want to explain things. He huffed out a laugh despite himself. Fair point. Okay, here's the truth. Ms. Vale and I used to know each other really well, a long time ago. And then we stopped knowing each other. And now she's back, and I'm trying to figure out how I feel about that. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking. Did she hurt your feelings? The question landed like a punch. Yeah, she did. Did you tell her that? I did. What did she say? She said she was sorry. Maya nodded sagely, like this made perfect sense. Well, that's good. Mrs. Chen says that when you hurt someone's feelings, you should say sorry and try to do better. Maybe Ms. Vale is trying to do better. If only it were that simple. If only a sorry could erase 10 years of silence, of wondering, of building walls to keep from feeling that kind of pain again. Maybe, he said, because he didn't know how else to respond. I like her, Maya said, looking up at him with those serious brown eyes. She's really nice. She helped me with my reading project, and she knew all about the Roman Empire, which is what I'm doing my report on, and she brought those really good cookies last week, the ones with chocolate and sea salt. Something cold settled in Ethan's stomach. Last week? I thought you said she'd only been volunteering for a couple months. She has been, but she brought cookies last week specifically. They were really good, Daddy. can we make cookies this weekend? He filed that away with all the other information he needed to process. Adriana had been around his daughter enough that Maya remembered what kind of cookies she brought. How many times had they interacted? How many conversations had they had? Sure, we can make cookies, but hey, I need you to do something for me. He waited until she was looking at him. If Ms. Vale talks to you again at school, I need you to tell me, okay? Not because she's bad or anything, but because I need to know. Maya's forehead wrinkled. Why? Because I'm your dad and I worry about you. That's literally my job. You worry about everything. That's because everything is worth worrying about when it comes to you. He kissed the top of her head. Now go brush your teeth. It's past your bedtime. She slid off his lap, but paused at the doorway. Daddy? If Ms. Vale hurt your feelings a long time ago, but she's sorry now and trying to be better, maybe you could give her another chance. That's what you always tell me to do when someone at school messes up. Then she was gone, leaving him alone with the cold pizza and the uncomfortable realization that his 8-year-old daughter was more emotionally mature than he was. He cleaned up the kitchen in a daze, threw the leftover pizza in the fridge, and eventually made his way to his own room. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table. Not much, but it was theirs. He'd made it work, made it home, made it enough. But lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling with the distant sound of traffic filtering through the window, Ethan couldn't stop his mind from spiraling backward. To the apartment on 5th Street where he'd lived with Adriana. To Sunday mornings in bed with coffee and newspapers spread across the sheets. To the way she'd laugh at his terrible jokes and leave post-it notes on the mirror with increasingly absurd compliments. To the night he'd almost bought a ring, standing in a jewelry store with 2 months of savings in his pocket, imagining a future that felt inevitable. He'd been 22 and stupid and so completely in love that he couldn't imagine anything going wrong. And then she was gone, and he'd learned exactly how much a person could hurt and still keep breathing. Sleep came eventually, but it was thin and restless, filled with dreams that blurred past and present until he couldn't tell which was which. His alarm went off at 6. He showered, dressed in the same jeans and flannel he wore most days, and stood in Maya's doorway watching her sleep for a minute longer than necessary. She was curled up with her stuffed elephant, the one she'd had since she was 2, its fur matted and one ear barely hanging on. She looked so small in that moment, so vulnerable. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him like a physical thing. Whatever he decided today, it had to be right, not for him, for her. He left a note on the kitchen table. The usual stuff about breakfast in the fridge, her lunch packed, Mrs. Chen next door if she needed anything before school. Then he grabbed his keys and headed out into the gray morning. Benny's Diner was exactly the kind of place it sounded like. Red vinyl booths, checkered floor, a counter with stools that spun if you pushed them hard enough. It smelled like bacon grease and coffee, and the waitress who'd been working there since before Ethan was born looked up when he walked in. Usual spot, hun? Yeah, thanks, Doris. He slid into the booth in the back corner, the one with a view of the door. Old habit. He ordered coffee and waited. Adriana walked in at 7 on the dot. She'd traded the power suit for dark jeans and a cream sweater, but she still looked expensive. Out of place in this diner with its cracked vinyl and grease-stained menus. Every head in the place turned to watch her walk toward him. She slid into the opposite side of the booth without preamble. Thank you for meeting me. I haven't decided if this is a good idea yet. Doris appeared with a second coffee mug. What can I get you, sweetheart? Just coffee is fine, black. You sure? The pancakes here are famous. Adriana smiled, and it was genuine enough that Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Maybe next time. Doris left with a knowing look, and the silence stretched between them. Adriana wrapped her hands around the mug, steam rising between them like a barrier. I don't know where to start, she said finally. Start with the truth, the real truth, not the edited version you gave me last night. She nodded, staring into her coffee like it might have answers. My family, the Vales, we're old money, the kind that comes with strings attached. My father ran an investment firm, legitimate on the surface, but underneath, she paused. Underneath, there were connections to people who did very bad things, money laundering mostly, some extortion. I didn't know about any of it until I was 19. By then, I was already too deep in the family business to walk away clean. Ethan listened, trying to reconcile this with the woman he'd known, the one who'd volunteered at soup kitchens and refused to buy coffee from chains because she preferred supporting local businesses. I tried to get out, she continued, went to college across the country, changed my name to Ross, my mother's maiden name, tried to build a life separate from all of it, and for a while it worked. I met you. We built something real. I thought maybe I could actually leave it all behind. But you couldn't. No, they found me, my father's people. They made it clear that if I didn't come back, if I didn't fall in line, they'd hurt the people I cared about. They had photos, Ethan. Photos of you leaving work, getting groceries, sitting in traffic. They knew where you lived, where you worked, every detail of your life. And they told me exactly what they'd do if I didn't disappear. His hands tightened around his mug. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me help? Because you couldn't help. These weren't people you could reason with or fight. They were people who made problems disappear permanently. And I wasn't going to let you become a problem. Her voice cracked slightly. So I left. I went back. I played the dutiful daughter for years, working in the company, doing what they wanted, hating every second of it. But I was buying time, learning everything I could about how they operated, who was involved, where the bodies were buried, literally and figuratively. And then what? You said they're gone now. What does that mean? Adriana's expression went cold, distant. It means I spent 8 years building a case, collecting evidence, making deals with federal prosecutors. And when I finally had everything I needed, I burned it all down. The company, the connections, everything. My father went to prison. So did half a dozen others. The ones who wouldn't go quietly. She trailed off. Let's just say they're not a problem anymore. Ethan felt sick, not just from what she was saying, but from the matter-of-fact way she said it, like she was describing a business transaction instead of destroying her entire family. The accident you mentioned, the one that's killing you, that was part of it? Yeah, my father's former business partner didn't appreciate being turned in. He sent some people to make sure I didn't make it to trial. They ran me off a highway outside of Sacramento. My car flipped 3 times. I woke up in the hospital with a fractured skull and bleeding in my brain. The doctors fixed what they could, but there's permanent damage, scar tissue, deterioration. Eventually it'll kill me. They just don't know exactly when. He didn't know what to say to that. Part of him wanted to feel sympathy, but it was tangled up with anger and confusion and the surreal realization that the woman he'd loved had apparently lived an entire second life he knew nothing about. Why are you telling me this now? Because you asked for the truth, and because you deserve to know who I really am before you decide whether I can be part of Maya's life. I'm not the person you knew 10 years ago, Ethan. That woman was half a lie, half a dream of who I wanted to be. The person sitting here now, she's done things you probably can't forgive. She's made choices that would horrify you, but she's real. And she's trying, however badly, to do something good before she runs out of time. Doris came by to refill their mugs. They both waited until she left before speaking again. You've been watching Maya since she was born, Ethan said. Why her? Why get so fixated on my daughter when you could have just, watched from a distance and left it at that? Adriana's face did something complicated. Because she's yours. Because watching you raise her alone, seeing the kind of father you became. It was the only good thing in my life for a long time. When everything else was falling apart, when I was drowning in my family's corruption and violence, I could check in on you two and remember that good people existed, that love existed, that I'd been part of something real once, even if I'd ruined it. That's not healthy. You know that's not healthy, right? Probably not. But I was never trying to be healthy. I was trying to survive. He took a long drink of coffee, burning his tongue, needing the jolt. You said you wanted to be part of her life. What does that look like to you? Because I'm not letting you swoop in and play mom. Maya had a mother, and she died giving her life. You don't get to replace that. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just want to know her, talk to her, be someone she can count on, even in a small way. Adriana leaned forward. I've missed 10 years of your life, Ethan. I can't get those back. But I don't want to miss whatever time I have left. And I don't want Maya to grow up never knowing that someone else cared about her, watched over her, wanted the best for her even from a distance. She's 8. How do you explain who you are to an 8-year-old? However you want. I can be your old friend who moved back to town. I can be a family friend. I can be nothing more than the volunteer at her school. You decide. I'll follow your lead. It sounded reasonable, sane even. But there was nothing sane about this situation, nothing reasonable about letting the woman who'd shattered him back into their lives, terminal illness or not. I need to think about it. Okay, and I need you to stay away from Maya until I make a decision. No more volunteering at the school. No more showing up. You give me space to figure this out without you lurking around every corner. Something flashed across her face, hurt maybe, or frustration, but she nodded. How long? I don't know, a week, maybe more, however long it takes. I don't have... She stopped herself. Okay, a week. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the world was waking up. Cars passing, people heading to work, life moving forward like it always did. But inside this booth, time felt suspended, stuck between past and present, between anger and something dangerously close to understanding. Why did you really come back? Ethan asked quietly. And don't say it's just about Maya or running out of time. There's something else. I can see it. Adriana's composure finally cracked. Her eyes went bright, and she looked away, jaw tight. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because I'm alone. Completely alone. I destroyed my family, burned every bridge, spent 10 years in hell getting free of people who would have killed me without a second thought. And now I'm dying, and I have no one. No friends who aren't on a payroll, no family who isn't in prison or dead. Just money and power and an empty apartment that echoes when I walk through it. She looked back at him, and the rawness in her expression made him want to look away. You and Maya, you're the only real thing I've ever had, and I know I don't deserve it. I know I gave up any right to it. But I'm selfish enough to want it anyway, even if it's just scraps, even if it's just being allowed to exist in the same orbit as the life I should have had. Ethan's throat felt tight. He'd wanted her to hurt the way he'd hurt, wanted her to suffer, to feel even a fraction of what he'd felt when she vanished. But hearing it laid out like this, the loneliness, the desperation, the quiet admission of defeat, it didn't feel like victory. It just felt sad. I'll think about it, he said again, because it was all he had. That's all I'm asking. He stood, dropped a 20 on the table even though they'd only had coffee, and walked out without looking back. His truck was parked across the street, and he sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, hands on the wheel, trying to calm the chaos in his head. She was dying. She'd destroyed her entire family to get free. She'd been watching them for 10 years. She was alone. None of it changed what she'd done. None of it erased the pain, but it complicated things in ways he didn't know how to handle. His phone rang. Thompson, the site supervisor. He answered on the third ring. Where the hell are you, Cole? We've got inspectors showing up in 20 minutes, and the framing on the west side is a disaster. I'm on my way. Work. He could focus on work. Physical labor, concrete problems with concrete solutions. He was good at that. Better than he was at navigating emotional minefields left over from a decade ago. The construction site was chaos when he arrived, workers scrambling, Thompson barking orders, the sound of hammers and saws filling the air. Ethan threw himself into it, grateful for the distraction. He spent the morning fixing mistakes, hauling materials, losing himself in the rhythm of the work. But during lunch break, sitting on a stack of lumber with a sandwich he barely tasted, his mind drifted back to the diner. To Adriana's face when she said she was alone, to the way her hands had shaken slightly when she held her coffee mug. You okay, man? Jake, one of the younger guys on the crew, sat down next to him. You've been weird all morning. Just tired. Yeah, well, join this club. Thompson's been on everyone's ass since that supply shipment got delayed. He bit into his sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. Hey, random question. You ever have an ex come back into your life years later and completely screw with your head? Ethan almost laughed. Why? Because my ex from high school keeps texting me. Like, we broke up 7 years ago. And now she's acting like we're best friends. It's messing with me. What do you want to do about it? Jake shrugged. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should tell her to leave me alone. But part of me remembers why I liked her in the first place, you know? Like, maybe people change. Maybe things could be different. Or maybe she's just lonely and you're familiar. Damn, Cole, that's harsh. That's life. He crumpled up his sandwich wrapper and stood. My advice? Figure out what you actually want, not what you think you should want. And don't let her guilt you into anything just because you used to care about her. He walked away before Jake could respond, heading back to work. But his own words echoed in his head. What did he want? Not what he should want, not what was smart or safe or reasonable. What did he actually want? The question followed him through the rest of the day, through measurements and cuts and the satisfaction of watching walls take shape, through the drive home, through picking up Maya from school, through making dinner and helping with homework and the whole routine that usually anchored him. Maya was in bed by 8:30 and the apartment fell quiet. Ethan stood at his window looking out at the parking lot, the streetlights casting orange pools across the pavement. His phone sat on the counter, Adriana's number still stored in recent calls. He could delete it, block her, move on with his life and pretend last night never happened. But he kept thinking about what Maya had said, about giving people chances, about trying to do better. And he kept thinking about the way Adriana had looked sitting across from him in that booth, powerful and broken in equal measure. A woman who'd survived hell only to find herself dying alone. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but he knew who it was before he even read it. I know I said I'd give you space, but I need you to know something. Maya's science fair project is due next week. She's been stressed about it. The supplies she needs are at Mitchell's Crafts on Oak Street. She wants to build a model of the solar system. I wasn't supposed to know this, but I'm telling you anyway because you're her father and you should know. That's all. I won't text again. He stared at the message for a long time. She'd been watching closely enough to know about Maya's science project, close enough to know his daughter was stressed, close enough to care about details that most people wouldn't notice. It should have been creepy, should have felt like a violation. Instead, it felt like something else, something he didn't have a name for yet. He set the phone down and went to check on Maya one more time before bed. She was sprawled across her mattress, covers kicked off, stuffed elephant clutched to her chest. He pulled the blanket back over her, brushed hair from her forehead, and stood there longer than necessary. I don't know what to do, he whispered to the sleeping child. I don't know if I'm supposed to forgive her, or protect you from her, or what. I just know I don't want to screw this up. Maya, of course, didn't answer, just kept breathing deeply, lost in whatever dreams 8-year-olds had. He went to bed but didn't sleep much, lay there thinking about the past and the present and the impossible task of figuring out where they intersected. By the time dawn broke through his window, he'd made a decision. Not a final one, not a permanent one, but a decision nonetheless. He texted Adriana at 6 a.m. Coffee, same place, tomorrow morning. Don't make me regret this. Her response came 30 seconds later. I won't. He hoped that was true. But hope and certainty were two very different things, and right now, all he had was hope and a gut feeling that might be the biggest mistake of his life. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something he couldn't see yet. Something that looked like forgiveness or understanding or at least the willingness to try. He got Maya up for school, made breakfast, went through all the normal motions. But underneath it all, something had shifted. The door he'd kept locked for 10 years had opened a crack, and he wasn't sure yet if that was dangerous or necessary. He just knew there was no closing it again. The second meeting felt different. Maybe because this time Ethan had chosen it. Maybe because he'd spent the night before planning what he'd say instead of letting anger do the talking. Either way, when Adriana walked into Benny's the next morning, he was already there, coffee growing cold in front of him. She slid into the booth, and this time she looked tired. Really tired. The kind that came from deeper than just a bad night's sleep. Thank you for texting me back, she said. I'm not promising anything. I know. Doris appeared, filled Adriana's mug without asking, and disappeared again. The diner was busier this morning. Truckers at the counter, a family with 2 small kids in the corner booth making a mess with syrup. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that 2 people a few feet away were trying to navigate a minefield disguised as a conversation. Ethan pulled out his phone and set it on the table between them. On the screen was a photo of Maya from last year, holding up a terrible attempt at a birdhouse she'd built in summer camp. She was grinning despite the crooked roof and the fact that no bird in its right mind would nest there. That's what we're talking about here, he said. Not me, not you, Not the past. Her. Everything I decide has to be about what's best for her. You understand that? Yes? Good. Because I've spent the last 2 days trying to figure out if having you around would help her or hurt her, and I still don't have a clear answer. But I'm willing to try something, on a trial basis, with rules. Adriana sat up straighter. What kind of rules? First, you don't tell her who you really are. Not yet. Maybe not ever. As far as Maya knows, you're an old friend of mine who moved back to town. That's it. Okay? Second, everything goes through me. You want to see her? You ask first. You want to take her anywhere. Do anything with her. You run it by me. I have veto power. No questions asked. Understood. Third, you're honest with me. About everything. Your health, your past, whatever. I don't care how ugly it is. If I'm letting you into her life, I need to know what I'm dealing with. Adriana nodded slowly. And fourth? There is no fourth. That's it. 3 rules. But if you break any of them, if you do anything that makes me think Maya's better off without you, you're gone. Permanently. No second chances. That's fair. He'd expected her to argue, to negotiate, to push back on at least one of the conditions. The fact that she didn't made him more nervous, not less. It meant she was desperate enough to agree to anything, and desperate people made mistakes. There's something else, he said. Something I need to know before we do this. What? Why now? Not the dying thing, not the guilt thing. The real reason. Because showing up at Maya's school, volunteering, getting close to her, that took planning. You didn't just stumble into Jefferson Elementary by accident. Adriana wrapped both hands around her mug and stared into it like she was reading tea leaves. Do you remember that night at Rosie's? The one where you told me about your mom? The question caught him off guard. What does that have to do with anything? Just answer. He did remember. It had been maybe 6 months into their relationship, late enough that he'd stopped pretending to be tougher than he was around her. They'd been sitting in a booth almost identical to this one, splitting a plate of fries that had gone cold because they'd been too busy talking to eat. He told her about his mother leaving when he was 12, about watching his dad try to raise him alone and failing in all the small ways that added up, about the anger he'd carried for years that she'd chosen to walk away instead of fighting to stay. I remember, he said, you told me that the worst part wasn't that she left. It was that she never came back, that you'd spent your whole childhood thinking maybe she'd change her mind, show up one day, say she was sorry, but she never did. And eventually, you stopped waiting. Adriana looked up at him. I didn't want Maya to spend her life waiting for someone who never showed up. I didn't want her to be 12 or 15 or 20 and still wondering if anyone besides you cared that she existed. She has people who care. She has me. I know, and you're incredible with her. But kids need to know they're worth more than one person's love. They need to know the world is bigger than that. So what? You thought you'd be her fairy godmother, watching from the shadows, leaving little breadcrumbs of affection? I thought I'd be whatever she needed, even if she never knew it was me. Adriana's voice was quiet but steady. I set up a trust fund in her name. She'll get access when she turns 18. I made sure Jefferson Elementary got a new playground last year. The old one was a death trap. I've been quietly funding after-school programs, art supplies, things that benefit her even if she doesn't know I'm behind them. Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. You've been manipulating her environment. I've been making sure she has opportunities. That's not your job, that's my job. It doesn't have to be either or. Why can't it be both of us making sure she has the best possible shot at life? Because you're not her parent. You're not anything to her except a stranger who happens to have money and guilt. The words came out harsher than he'd intended, and he saw Adriana flinch. Good. Maybe she needed to hear it. Maybe she needed to understand that money and good intentions didn't equal family. You're right, she said after a moment. I'm not her parent. I'm not family. But I could be a friend. I could be someone who shows up when it matters. Someone who cares about her success and happiness without needing anything in return. Everyone needs something in return. Not this time. This time, I just need to know she's okay. That she grows up knowing she mattered to more than just you. Ethan wanted to stay angry. Wanted to hold on to the righteous indignation that had fueled him through the past 2 days. But sitting here listening to her explain herself in that careful, measured way, he couldn't quite manage it. Because underneath the manipulation and the surveillance, and the questionable choices, there was something that felt genuine, maybe even good. "Okay," he said finally. "Here's what we're going to do. You can come to dinner tomorrow night at our place. 6:30. I'll tell Maya you're an old friend who's back in town. We'll eat, we'll talk, you'll see how she's doing, and then you'll leave. That's the trial run." Adriana's face did something complicated. Relief and fear and hope all mixed together. "Tomorrow night, okay? Don't bring expensive gifts. Don't try to buy your way into her good graces. Just be normal." "I can do normal." "Can you, though? Because from where I'm sitting, normal is not exactly your strong suit." A smile ghosted across her face, the first real one he'd seen since she'd come back. "Fair point. I'll do my best." They sat in silence for a minute, and it was almost comfortable, almost like old times when they could share space without needing to fill it with words. Then Doris came by with the check, and the moment broke. Ethan reached for it, but Adriana was faster. "Let me. It's coffee. I can afford coffee." "I know you can, but let me do this. Let me have one small thing." He let go of the check, watched her pull out a wallet that probably cost more than his truck payment, and leave enough cash to cover the bill twice over. It bothered him more than it should have. The reminder that she lived in a completely different world now, one where money was background noise instead of a constant calculation. They walked out together, stopping on the sidewalk outside. The morning sun was breaking through the clouds, warming the pavement, making everything look cleaner than it actually was. "Thank you," Adriana said, "for giving me a chance. I know you didn't have to." "I'm not doing it for you." "I know. You're doing it for Maya. That's what makes you a good father." Something in his chest tightened. He wasn't used to hearing that from anyone, let alone from her. Sarah used to say it sometimes, in the early days when Maya was still tiny and terrifying. But after she died, it was just him and Maya and the constant fear that he was screwing everything up. "Tomorrow," he said, ignoring the feeling. 6:30. Don't be late." "I won't." He walked to his truck without looking back, but he could feel her eyes on him until he pulled out of the parking lot. The whole drive to the site, he kept replaying the conversation in his head, looking for holes in his logic, reasons to change his mind. But he'd made his decision. Now he just had to live with it. Work was a blur. He moved through the day on autopilot, hammering and measuring and trying not to think about tomorrow night. About Adriana sitting at his kitchen table, eating dinner with his daughter, pretending everything was normal when nothing about this situation was even close to normal. Thompson pulled him aside around 3. "You sick or something? You've been off all week." "Just dealing with some personal stuff." "We'll deal with it on your own time. I need you sharp tomorrow. We've got the city inspector coming, and if he finds half the shit I think he's going to find, we're all screwed." "I'll be sharp." Thompson looked skeptical, but let it go. Ethan finished out his shift and headed home, stopping at Mitchell's Crafts, like Adriana's text had suggested. The solar system supplies were exactly where the kid behind the counter said they'd be. Foam balls in various sizes, paint, wire. He grabbed everything, plus some extra glue because Maya always underestimated how much glue a project required. At the register, he hesitated, then grabbed a card of pushpins with little star shapes. Unnecessary, but Maya would like them. Small things mattered when you were 8. He got home before Maya's bus dropped her off, which was rare enough that she looked surprised when she walked through the door. "You're home early." "Finished up at the site, and I got something for you." He gestured to the bags on the kitchen table. Maya's face lit up. She dropped her backpack and practically dove into the bags, pulling out foam balls and paint with the kind of excitement that made the overpriced craft store trip worth it. "This is perfect. Ms. Chen said I needed to get started this week, or I'd run out of time, and now I can actually do it and make it look good." And she stopped, looking at him with sudden suspicion. "How did you know I needed this stuff?" "A little bird told me." "What little bird?" "The kind that pays attention." He ruffled her hair. "You want to start on it tonight? We could at least get the base built." "Yes. Can we order pizza, please? Building planets and pizza is the best combination." He couldn't argue with that logic. They ordered from Tony's, the place 3 blocks over that Maya insisted had the best crust, even though Ethan was pretty sure all pizza crust tasted the same. While they waited for delivery, they cleared the kitchen table and spread out newspapers to protect the surface. Maya was chattering about her day, something about a kid in her class who'd brought a pet lizard for show and tell, and how it had escaped and caused chaos until Mr. Wilson found it behind the globe. Normal kid stuff. The kind of stuff that usually grounded Ethan, reminded him that despite everything, they had a good life. But tonight, his mind kept drifting to tomorrow, to what he'd say to Maya about Adriana, to whether he was making a massive mistake. "Daddy, you're not listening." He snapped back to attention. "Sorry, baby girl. What were you saying?" "I asked if Ms. Vale was okay. She wasn't at school today, and usually she's there on Thursdays." His stomach dropped. "She wasn't there?" "Nope. Mrs. Chen said she had something come up. I hope she's okay." "Do you think she's okay?" "I'm sure she's fine." But even as he said it, worry crept in. What if something had happened? What if her health had taken a turn? He pushed the thought away. She would have texted him. Probably. Maybe. The pizza arrived, derailing that train of thought. They ate and worked on the project simultaneously, getting paint on their hands and probably on the furniture too. Maya wanted to make Jupiter's storm accurate, which required mixing 3 different shades of orange and white in a way that looked more like a mess than a storm, but she was proud of it. By the time they finished for the night, it was past 9, and Maya was half asleep in her chair, smudged with paint and glue. "Bed," Ethan said. "We'll finish tomorrow." "But tomorrow's Friday, and we always go to Rosie's on Friday." Damn, he'd forgotten about their standing Friday tradition. "Right. Okay, we'll finish this weekend then." She nodded sleepily and let him guide her to the bathroom to wash up. As he helped her brush her teeth, she was old enough to do it herself, but tonight she was too tired to protest the help. He made a decision. "Hey, so I have a friend coming over for dinner tomorrow. An old friend from before you were born. Her name's Adriana." Maya looked at him in the mirror, foam from the toothpaste on her chin. "A friend or a girlfriend?" "What?" "No, just a friend. We used to know each other, and she moved back to town, so I invited her over." "Oh." She rinsed and spit. "Is she nice?" "Yeah, she's nice." "Okay. Can we still get pancakes at Rosie's?" "We'll go for lunch instead. How's that?" "Works for me." And just like that, it was settled. No drama, no questions, just easy acceptance that sometimes grown-ups had friends over for dinner. Kids made everything seem simpler than it was. He tucked her in, read 3 pages of the book they were working through, some fantasy thing with dragons and complicated politics that Maya loved and Ethan found mildly confusing, and turned off the light. "Night, Daddy." "Night, baby girl?" He closed her door and stood in the hallway for a moment, letting the weight of tomorrow settle over him. Then he pulled out his phone and texted Adriana. "Maya said you weren't at school today. Everything okay?" The response came 5 minutes later. "Doctor's appointment, routine check. I'm fine. Still on for tomorrow?" "Yeah, 6:30. Don't forget." "I won't. Thank you, Ethan. For this. For the chance." He didn't respond. Didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound like he was softening when he needed to stay firm. This was a trial. That was all. If it went badly, if Maya seemed uncomfortable or if Adriana overstepped, he could end it. He had that power. He just hoped he'd have the strength to use it if necessary. Friday at work dragged. Every minute felt like 10, and by the time Thompson finally called it for the day, Ethan was practically vibrating with nervous energy. He stopped at the store on the way home, grabbed ingredients for the most basic dinner he could think of, spaghetti and garlic bread. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would make it seem like he was trying too hard. Maya was already home when he got there, doing homework at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chen checking in through the window between their apartments. "Thanks for keeping an eye on her," Ethan called over. "Anytime, honey. She's been good as gold." Mrs. Chen waved and disappeared back into her own place. Ethan started cooking, and Maya finished her homework, and everything felt aggressively normal until 6:25 when his daughter looked up from her book and said, "Is your friend coming soon?" "Yeah, any minute." "Should I change? I got paint on my shirt at school." "You're fine, it's just dinner." But he'd changed shirts twice before settling on the flannel he was wearing now, so who was he to judge? The knock came at exactly 6:30. Punctual. Of course she was. Ethan opened the door and there was Adriana, holding a small bakery box and looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her. She'd dressed down, jeans, a simple blue sweater, minimal jewelry, trying to fit into their world instead of standing out from it. "Hi," she said. "Come in." She stepped inside and her eyes immediately went to Maya, who'd come to stand beside Ethan. For a second, something raw and unguarded crossed Adriana's face. Then she smiled, and it was gentle, genuine. "You must be Maya. Your dad's told me a lot about you." Maya looked at Ethan for confirmation. He nodded. "Maya, this is Adriana. We knew each other a long time ago." "Hi," Maya said, suddenly shy in a way she rarely was. "Do you like dragons?" The question threw Adriana for half a second. Yes? I think they're very cool." "Good. Because dragons are the best, and if you didn't like them, we couldn't be friends." Maya said this with complete seriousness. Adriana laughed, and it sounded real. "Then I'm glad I passed the test." They moved to the kitchen, and Ethan finished plating the spaghetti while Maya explained her science project in excruciating detail. Adriana listened like it was the most fascinating thing she'd ever heard, asking questions, making suggestions about how to get Saturn's rings to stay attached to the foam ball. Dinner was easier than Ethan had expected. Conversation flowed naturally, mostly because Maya carried it with her endless stream of stories and observations. Adriana fit into the rhythm of it better than he'd anticipated, never talking down to Maya, never trying too hard, just being present. At one point, Maya knocked over her water glass and Ethan caught it before it spilled everywhere. Adriana handed him a napkin without being asked, their hands brushing briefly. The contact was electric and unwelcome, and he pulled back faster than necessary. After dinner, Maya insisted on showing Adriana her room, which was exactly the disaster of stuffed animals and books and art supplies that it always was. Adriana took it all in with the kind of attention that made Ethan uncomfortable, because it felt like she was memorizing every detail. "This is Dumpling," Maya said, holding up the elephant. "He's been with me forever. Well, not forever, but since I was really little." "He looks well-loved," Adriana said, and there was something in her voice that made Ethan's chest tight. They made their way back to the living room, where Maya pulled out a board game. Some complicated thing involving cards and dice that she'd been obsessed with for months. Ethan usually lost on purpose because Maya got genuinely upset when she didn't win. But tonight she was focused on teaching Adriana the rules. No, you have to draw 2 cards before you roll. It's super important." "Got it. Draw first, roll second." They played 3 rounds. Adriana won the first one, which made Maya pout until Adriana admitted she might have gotten lucky. Maya won the second. Ethan won the third by accident, which satisfied no one. By 8 o'clock, Maya was yawning between turns, and Ethan called it. "Bedtime, kiddo." "But we're in the middle of—" "Bed. Now. School tomorrow." Maya grumbled, but didn't fight it. She said goodnight to Adriana with a hug that surprised all 3 of them, then shuffled off to get ready for bed, which left Ethan and Adriana alone in the living room, the ghost of easy domesticity hanging between them. "She's incredible," Adriana said quietly. "Everything I imagined, and more." "Yeah, she is. You've done an amazing job with her." "I did what I had to do, same as anyone would." "No, not the same as anyone. Better." She stood, gathering her jacket. "I should go. I don't want to overstay." He walked her to the door, suddenly aware of how small the apartment felt with her in it, how her presence made everything seem temporary, like his whole life was just a placeholder for something bigger. "Thank you for tonight," she said at the door. "For letting me in. I know it wasn't easy." "It wasn't, but Maya seemed to like you. She's remarkable. Smart, funny, kind. You should be proud." "I am." He paused, then made himself ask the question he'd been avoiding all night. "How are you?" "Really? The doctor's appointment yesterday, was it actually routine?" Adriana's expression shifted. "Mostly. They wanted to do another scan, check the progression. It's slower than they expected, which is good, but it's still happening." "How much time?" "They're estimating 4 years now, maybe 5 if I'm lucky." 4 years. Not 10, not 20. 4 years before she'd be gone again, this time permanently. The knowledge sat heavy in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it despite everything. "Me too." She opened the door, stepped out into the hallway, then turned back. "Can I see her again? Next week, maybe?" He should have said no, should have told her one dinner was enough, she'd gotten what she wanted, time to back off. But Maya's delighted giggle during the board game kept echoing in his head, and the way Adriana had looked at his daughter, like she was seeing something precious and fragile and worth protecting. I'll think about it. Okay, that's fair. She started to leave, then stopped again. Ethan? For what it's worth, I meant what I said at the diner. I'm not trying to replace anyone or insert myself where I don't belong. I just want to know her while I still can. That's all. I know. She left and he closed the door, leaning against it for a moment. The apartment felt emptier now, quieter. He could hear Maya in her room, probably reading under the covers with a flashlight like she thought he didn't know about. He checked on her. She was indeed reading, flashlight tucked under her pillow the second she heard him coming, and sat on the edge of her bed. So, what did you think of Adriana? Maya considered this seriously. I liked her. She's smart, and she actually listened to me explain the science project instead of pretending to listen like some adults do. And she didn't get mad when I beat her at the game. Those are all good things. Are you going to be friends with her again? Like, for real friends? I don't know yet. Maybe. I think you should. She seems lonely, and you seem less sad when she's around. The observation hit him like a gut punch. I'm not sad. You are, though, not all the time. But sometimes you get this look like you're thinking about something that hurts, and you didn't have that look tonight. He didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes being less sad was more dangerous than being sad, because it meant you were letting someone in who could hurt you again. Get some sleep, he said instead. School tomorrow. Okay. She snuggled deeper into her blankets. Night, Daddy. Love you. Love you too, baby girl. He turned off the light and closed the door, then stood in the hallway trying to sort through the mess in his head. Maya was right. He had felt less sad tonight, more like himself. The version of himself that existed before Adriana left, before Sarah died, before he became just a single dad trying to keep his head above water. And that terrified him, because feeling better meant he had something to lose again, and losing hurt in ways he'd spent 10 years trying to forget. His phone buzzed. Adriana. Thank you for tonight, for letting me into her world, even just for a few hours. She's everything I hoped she'd be. Sweet dreams. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, She liked you. We'll talk next week about doing this again. The response was immediate, a simple heart emoji. Nothing else. He set the phone down and walked to his room, but sleep didn't come easy. He lay there thinking about dinner, about Maya's laughter, about the way Adriana had looked at his daughter like she was the answer to a question she'd been asking for 10 years. And somewhere in the darkness, between awake and asleep, he started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what someone did. Maybe it was about deciding that holding on to anger hurt worse than taking a risk on something new. Or maybe he was just tired and overthinking everything like he always did. Either way, something had shifted tonight. The door had opened wider, and whether that was a good thing or a disaster waiting to happen, only time would tell. The pattern established itself faster than Ethan had anticipated. 1 dinner became 2, then 3. Within a month, Adriana was a semi-regular presence in their lives, showing up for dinner on Wednesdays, sometimes joining them for Saturday morning trips to the farmer's market, always careful to ask permission first, always leaving before Maya's bedtime. It should have felt intrusive, should have felt wrong. But somehow it didn't, and that bothered Ethan more than if it had been a disaster from the start. He was loading lumber onto the truck bed one afternoon when Jake wandered over, water bottle in hand, that knowing smirk already forming. So word around the site is, you've got a girlfriend. Ethan didn't look up. Word around the site should mind its own business. Thompson saw you at Rosie's last Saturday with some woman. Said she looked expensive. She's not my girlfriend. She's a friend. There's a difference. Right, and I'm sure you let all your friends hang out with your kid on weekends. Jake took a swig of water. Come on, man, it's okay to date. You've been single for what, 8 years? You're allowed to have a life. It's not like that. Then what's it like? Ethan slammed the tailgate shut harder than necessary. It's complicated. She's someone I used to know and she's back in town and Maya likes her. That's all. Used to know, huh? Like how used to know? Like it's none of your damn business how. Jake held up his hands in surrender. All right. Touchy subject, got it. But for what it's worth, whatever you're doing, you seem less miserable. And that's saying something considering Thompson's been on the warpath all week. He walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving him alone with the truck and thoughts he'd been trying to avoid. Was it that obvious? Did everyone see what Maya had seen? That he was different when Adriana was around? His phone buzzed. Speak of the devil. Maya's science fair is Friday night. I know I'm not supposed to overstep, but I wanted to ask if you'd be comfortable with me being there. I can stay in the background. She won't even know I'm there if you don't want her to. He stared at the message for a long time. The science fair was a big deal. Maya had been working on that solar system project for weeks, had repainted Jupiter twice to get the storm right, had stressed about whether her presentation board was colorful enough. It was the kind of event where parents showed up with cameras and proud smiles. And Adriana wanted to be there. Not as a volunteer, not as a stranger, but as someone who cared enough to watch Maya present her project to a gym full of judges and other kids. He typed back, "You can come, but you sit with us. I'm not having you lurk in corners like some kind of spy." Her response came immediately. "Thank you. I promise I'll behave." Friday arrived with Maya a bundle of nerves. She changed her outfit 3 times, convinced her hair looked stupid no matter how Ethan tried to fix it, and nearly cried when she realized she'd forgotten to print out one of her reference sheets. "It's going to be fine," Ethan said for the 10th time as they loaded the project into his truck. "You know your stuff. You practiced. The judges are going to love it. But what if they ask me something I don't know? What if my poster board falls over? What if you take a deep breath and remember that you're the smartest 8-year-old I know?" She did breathe, long and shaky. Okay, I can do this. That's my girl." The elementary school gym was already packed when they arrived. Tables lined the walls, each one displaying a different project: volcanoes, plant growth experiments, displays about recycling. Maya's table was near the back, and they spent 20 minutes setting everything up just right. "Perfect," Ethan said, stepping back to admire the display. "You nailed it." "You think so?" Maya fiddled with one of Jupiter's moons. "I know so. Now stop messing with it before you knock something over." She laughed nervously and stepped away from the table. That's when she spotted Adriana making her way through the crowd, wearing dark slacks and a blazer that probably cost more than the entire science fair budget. "Ms. Vale!" Maya waved enthusiastically. "You came!" "Of course I came. Wouldn't miss it." Adriana's smile was genuine as she approached. "Wow, Maya, this looks incredible." "Really? You don't think Jupiter looks weird?" "Jupiter looks perfect. The Great Red Spot is especially impressive." Maya beamed, all her earlier nervousness evaporating. Ethan watched the interaction with mixed feelings. On one hand, it was good to see his daughter happy and confident. On the other hand, the easy way they interacted, like they'd known each other for years instead of weeks, made something in his chest tighten. The judges started making their rounds, and Adriana stepped back to stand next to Ethan while Maya launched into her presentation. She was a natural, explaining orbital periods and gravitational pull with the kind of enthusiasm that made even dry facts interesting. "She's really something," Adriana said quietly. "Yeah, she is. She gets that from you. The way she explains things makes complicated stuff accessible. That's pure Ethan." He glanced at her. "You've been around for a month. That's not enough time to know what's me and what's her." "I've been watching for 8 years, remember? I know more than you think." The reminder sent a chill through him. He still wasn't comfortable with that. The idea that she'd been this invisible presence in their lives for so long. It felt like a violation, even if her intentions had been good. The judge moved on to the next table, and Maya practically vibrated with nervous energy until he was out of earshot. Then she turned to them, eyes wide. "How did I do? Was I okay? Did I talk too fast?" "You were perfect," Ethan and Adriana said simultaneously, then looked at each other. An awkward beat passed. "See?" Maya said. "Even Ms. Vale thinks so, and she's really smart." They wandered through the rest of the fair, looking at other projects, making appropriate impressed noises at baking soda volcanoes, and elaborate displays about the water cycle. Maya ran into friends from her class and got absorbed in comparing projects, leaving Ethan and Adriana standing near the refreshment table. "This is nice," Adriana said, watching Maya laugh with a group of kids. "Normal. I didn't think I'd ever get to experience something like this. It's a school science fair. It's not exactly groundbreaking. It is when you've spent most of your life in boardrooms and courtrooms." She picked up a cookie from the refreshment table, studying it like it was a foreign object. "I never got to do this stuff as a kid. Science fairs, bake sales, any of it. My parents didn't believe in public school. I had tutors and expectations, and a schedule that left no room for anything resembling childhood. He hadn't known that. In all the time they'd spent together 10 years ago, she'd never really talked about her childhood. He'd assumed it had been normal, maybe even privileged in a good way. The picture she was painting now was something different, something lonely. "Is that why you left?" he asked. "Why you went along with what your family wanted? Because you didn't know how to say no?" "Partly, but mostly because they made it clear that saying no meant people would get hurt. And I couldn't—" She stopped, shook her head. "I couldn't live with that kind of blood on my hands." "So you lived with a different kind of blood on your hands instead." She looked at him sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you made choices. Hard ones, maybe, but choices. And you don't get to act like you were just a victim in all this. You chose to leave without telling me. You chose to stay away for 10 years. You chose to watch us from a distance instead of trusting me to handle the truth." "You're right." Her voice went flat. "I chose. And maybe they were the wrong choices. But they were mine to make, and I made them based on information you didn't have. Then give me the information. Stop hiding behind vague references to danger and family drama and tell me what really happened." Adriana set down the cookie, jaw tight. "You want the truth? Fine. My father's business partner, the one who ran me off the road, he didn't just target me. He went after everyone I'd ever cared about. Every friend, every colleague, anyone who might have information or leverage. 3 people died, Ethan. 3 people who had nothing to do with any of it, except they knew me. And that was before I even testified. Before I brought the whole thing down. So when I say you would have been in danger, I'm not being dramatic. I'm telling you that associating with me got people killed." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and ugly. Around them, the science fair continued, parents taking photos, kids eating cookies, teachers organizing the awards ceremony. Normal life, unaware of the conversation happening in the corner. "I'm sorry," Ethan said finally. "I didn't know it was that bad." "How could you? I never told you." She crossed her arms, defensive posture, walls back up. "I'm not trying to guilt you into feeling sorry for me. I'm trying to make you understand why I did what I did, whether you agree with it or not. I'm trying to understand. I am. But you have to meet me halfway. You can't keep dropping these bombs and expecting me to just absorb them without reaction." "I know. You're right. I'm sorry." She rubbed her temples, and for the first time he noticed the faint tremor in her hands. "The headaches are getting worse. Doctor says it's normal, just part of the progression, but it makes it hard to think straight sometimes." Concern overrode his frustration. "Do you need to leave? Go home and rest?" "No, I want to be here for Maya. I'll be fine." She didn't look fine. She looked exhausted and in pain, and like she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. But before he could push the issue, Maya came running over, breathless and excited. "They're about to announce the winners. Come on!" They followed her back to the main area where a teacher with a microphone was calling for everyone's attention. The awards were divided by grade level, and Maya's category was third. Ethan felt his stomach knot with nerves, not because winning mattered, but because he knew how much it mattered to Maya. Third place went to a kid with a project about renewable energy. Second place went to a display about earthquakes. And then the teacher smiled and said, "First place in the third grade category goes to Maya Cole for her comprehensive model of the solar system." Maya's shriek of joy was probably heard 3 blocks away. She rushed forward to accept her ribbon, practically bouncing with excitement, and when she came back, she threw her arms around Ethan first, then, without hesitation, around Adriana. "I won! I actually won!" "You earned it," Adriana said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "That project was amazing." They took the obligatory photos, Maya holding her ribbon and grinning so wide her face had to hurt. Other parents congratulated them, and through it all, Adriana stayed close but not intrusive, letting Ethan take the lead while still being present. It wasn't until they were packing up the project to take home that Maya looked between them and asked the question Ethan had been dreading. "Ms. Vale, are you coming to my birthday party next month?" Adriana glanced at Ethan, clearly unsure how to respond. He hadn't even thought about the birthday party yet. It was still 3 weeks away. But now that Maya had brought it up, he couldn't exactly uninvite Adriana without explanation. "If your dad says it's okay," Adriana said carefully. Maya turned to him with those pleading eyes that she knew he couldn't resist. Can she come, please? It's going to be at the park and we're having a bounce house and everything. He wanted to say no. Wanted to keep that boundary firm, keep Adriana in the category of occasional visitor rather than someone who attended milestone events. But Maya was looking at him with such hope, and Adriana was trying so hard to defer to his authority, and he was so damn tired of fighting against something that might actually be good for his daughter. Yeah, he heard himself say. She can come. Maya cheered and threw her arms around him again. Over her head, he met Adriana's eyes. She mouthed thank you, and he nodded, even as his brain screamed that he was making a mistake. They walked out to the parking lot together, Maya chattering about the party plans while carrying her ribbon like it was made of gold. Ethan loaded the project carefully into his truck, and when he turned around, Adriana was leaning against her car, something sleek and expensive that looked out of place in the school parking lot, with her eyes closed. You okay? He asked. She opened her eyes, and he could see the pain there. Yeah, just need to get home and take my medication. Today's been a lot. Good lot or bad lot? Best lot I've had in years. She smiled, but it was strained. Thank you for letting me be here, for letting me be part of this. Don't thank me yet. You still have to survive a kid's birthday party at a public park. That's a whole different level of chaos. I think I can handle it. We'll see. She got in her car and drove away, and Ethan watched her taillights disappear around the corner before climbing into his truck where Maya was already buckled in, still holding her ribbon. Miss Vale is nice, Maya said as he started the engine. I'm glad she's your friend. Me too, baby girl. And the scary thing was, he meant it. Somewhere between the angry confrontation in the classroom and tonight, something had shifted. He didn't trust Adriana, not fully, maybe not ever, but he was starting to accept that she was here, she cared, and maybe that was enough for now. The 3 weeks before Maya's birthday passed in a blur of work and routine and increasingly frequent text messages from Adriana. She asked about Maya's favorite cake flavor, about whether there were kids in her class who should definitely be invited, about what kind of gift would be appropriate without being over the top. Ethan answered each message with more patience than he'd expected from himself, and tried not to think too hard about why he was giving her so much access to their lives. The night before the party, he couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 2 months. It felt like standing on the edge of something, a cliff maybe, or a bridge over water too deep to see the bottom. One more step and there'd be no going back. His phone lit up on the nightstand, 2:47 a.m. The message was from Adriana. I can't sleep, keep thinking about tomorrow, about how I never thought I'd get to see her turn 9. Thank you for giving me this. He should have ignored it, should have rolled over and tried to sleep. Instead, he typed back, You awake because you can't sleep or because the headaches are bad? Both? You take your medication? Yeah, it's not helping much tonight. He sat up, suddenly wide awake and alert. You need to go to the hospital? No, it's not that bad, just uncomfortable. I'll be fine by morning. You sure? I'm sure. Go back to sleep, Ethan. You need rest if you're going to survive 20 screaming kids at a park tomorrow. 23. Maya invited her entire class, plus cousins. God help you. Despite everything, he smiled. Good night, Adriana. Good night. He set the phone down and did eventually fall asleep, though his dreams were strange and unsettling, full of birthday parties that morphed into hospital rooms, of Maya laughing while Adriana faded in the background like a ghost. The party itself was exactly the chaos Ethan had predicted. Kids everywhere, the bounce house a whirlwind of shrieking energy, parents congregated near the picnic tables trying to maintain some semblance of order. Ethan had recruited Mrs. Chen and 2 other parents to help supervise, and they were all earning their keep. Adriana showed up right on time, carrying a wrapped present that looked appropriately sized and a container of homemade cupcakes. You made cupcakes? Ethan asked, surprised. Don't sound so shocked. I'm capable of basic baking. She set them on the table. Chocolate with vanilla frosting. I checked with you about allergies last week, remember? He did remember. She'd sent him a detailed message asking about food allergies, dietary restrictions, anything she needed to be aware of. It had been thorough to the point of being slightly excessive, but he'd appreciated the care. Maya spotted her and came running over, sweaty and pink-cheeked from the bounce house. "Miss Vale, you're here. Did you bring a present? Can I open it now?" "Maya," Ethan warned, "what do we say?" "Thank you for coming?" She tried hopefully. "Better. And no, you can't open presents until after we do cake." Maya groaned but accepted this with minimal complaint, then dragged Adriana off to introduce her to her friends. Ethan watched them go, Adriana crouching down to kid level to talk to a group of second and third graders about something that had them all animated and gesturing wildly. Mrs. Chen appeared at his elbow. "That's the friend you've been seeing?" "We're not seeing each other. She's just—" "Oh, honey, save it. I've lived next door to you for 6 years. I know when something's different." She patted his arm. "She's good with Maya. That's what matters." "Yeah, she is." They did pizza first because trying to do cake before food was a recipe for disaster. Ethan had ordered enough to feed a small army, and the kids demolished it in minutes, while the adults picked at their slices and tried to prevent complete anarchy. Then came the cake. Chocolate with rainbow sprinkles because that's what Maya had requested. And the off-key singing of Happy Birthday, and Maya blowing out 9 candles with enough force to nearly extinguish the candles on the neighboring table too. Present time was controlled chaos. Maya opened gift after gift, exclaiming over each one with genuine enthusiasm, even when it was clearly something she'd never use. Books, art supplies, gift cards, stuffed animals. The pile grew until it became clear they'd need a second trip to get everything home. Adriana's gift was near the bottom of the pile. Maya tore into the wrapping paper and pulled out a box, inside which was a telescope. Not a toy telescope, a real one, with a tripod and multiple lenses and an instruction manual thicker than most novels. Maya's jaw dropped. This is a real telescope." "It is," Adriana said. "I noticed your solar system project and thought you might like to see the real thing. There's a meteor shower next month. I thought maybe we could all go somewhere dark enough to see it properly." Maya looked at Ethan with such pure joy that his throat closed up. "Daddy, can we, please?" He didn't know what to say. The telescope was expensive, easily several $100s, and the gesture of planning a future outing to use it together was so far beyond what he'd agreed to that he should have been angry. But Maya was practically vibrating with excitement, and Adriana was looking at him with hope and fear in equal measure, and all the other kids were crowding around to see the cool telescope. "Yeah," he managed. "We can do that." Maya launched herself at Adriana, hugging her tight, and over his daughter's shoulder, Adriana met his eyes. There was something vulnerable there, something that said she knew she'd crossed a line but hoped he'd forgive it. He would. He knew he would, because the happiness on Maya's face was worth more than his discomfort with accepting expensive gifts from someone who was rapidly becoming more than just an old friend. The party wound down eventually. Parents collected their sugar-crashed children. The bounce house company came to pack up their equipment, and the park slowly emptied until it was just Ethan, Maya, Adriana, and Mrs. Chen helping clean up. "I can take this load," Mrs. Chen said, gesturing to the bags of presents. "You've got your hands full with the rest." "Thanks, I owe you." "Nonsense, what are neighbors for?" She headed to her car and Maya went with her to make sure nothing got left behind, leaving Ethan alone with Adriana. "I'm sorry about the telescope," she said immediately. "I know it's too much, but when I saw it I just thought about how much she'd love it, and I couldn't help myself." "It's too much," he agreed. "Way too much." "I can return it. Get something smaller." "Don't you dare. She'll never forgive either of us." He started folding up the tablecloth, giving his hand something to do. "But you need to stop doing this. The big gestures, the expensive gifts, it's not about the money. Well, it's partly about the money, but it's more about you trying to buy your way into our lives." "I'm not trying to buy anything, aren't you? Every time you show up, it's with cookies or cupcakes or now a telescope. Like you think you need to bring something to be worth keeping around." She flinched. "Maybe I do think that. Maybe I don't know how else to show I care except through gestures like this. You show you care by being present, by listening when Maya talks about her day, by showing up even when there's nothing exciting happening. That's what matters, not the stuff." "Okay, I'll do better, I promise." He wanted to believe her, wanted to believe this could work, that she could fit into their lives without disrupting everything. But there was still so much unresolved between them, so many things they'd avoided talking about, because addressing them would mean confronting feelings he wasn't ready to face. Maya came bounding back, saving him from having to continue the conversation. Mrs. Chen said we should definitely use the telescope tonight. Can we, Daddy? Can we set it up when we get home? It's your birthday. If you want to spend the evening looking at stars, we can look at stars. Yes! She grabbed the telescope box like it was treasure. This is the best birthday ever. They loaded up the truck, said goodbye to the last stragglers, and Adriana walked them to the parking lot. At her car, she paused. Can I come over tonight to help set up the telescope? I promise I'll leave early, won't overstay. Ethan should have said no. Should have maintained the boundary, given himself space to process everything. But Maya was looking between them with such hope, and he was tired of always being the one who said no. Yeah, come by around 7. We'll figure it out together. Maya cheered and Adriana smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached her eyes and made her look younger, less burdened by whatever weight she carried. They drove home in comfortable silence, Maya already reading through the telescope manual in the passenger seat. When they pulled into the parking lot, Ethan caught sight of their reflection in the rearview mirror, him and his daughter, both smiling, both happy. And for the first time in 10 years, he let himself think that maybe, just maybe, letting Adriana back into their lives wasn't the disaster he'd been expecting. Maybe it was something else entirely. Something that looked like healing, or second chances, or the possibility that broken things could be pieced back together in new and unexpected ways. He didn't know yet if that was true. But tonight, with Maya's birthday joy filling the truck and the promise of stargazing ahead, he was willing to consider it. And that alone was progress he hadn't thought possible 2 months ago. That night, they set up the telescope on the small balcony of Ethan's apartment. It was cramped, barely enough room for the three of them, and the equipment, but Maya didn't care. She was too busy adjusting the focus, following Adriana's patient instructions from the manual, her face scrunched in concentration. There, Adriana said softly. See that bright one? That's Jupiter. If you look really carefully, you can see some of its moons. Maya pressed her eye to the lens, then gasped. I can see them. I can actually see them. Daddy, look. Ethan took his turn, squinting through the eyepiece until the blurry blob resolved into something clearer. Jupiter hung there in the darkness, tiny and impossibly far away, with 4 pinpricks of light arranged around it like a family. That's incredible, he said, and meant it. They took turns for the next hour, Adriana identifying constellations and planets, while Maya peppered her with questions about distance and gravity and whether aliens might exist somewhere out there. Ethan mostly listened, watching the two of them interact with an ease that should have taken years to develop, but somehow hadn't. When Maya finally started yawning between questions, he called it, All right, kiddo, time for bed, school tomorrow. But we're just getting started. The stars will still be there tomorrow night, and the night after that. Maya grumbled, but didn't fight too hard. She hugged Adriana goodnight. It was becoming routine now, these casual displays of affection, and shuffled inside to get ready for bed, which left Ethan and Adriana alone on the balcony. The telescope still pointed at Jupiter, the city lights dimming the stars but not quite erasing them. Thank you, he said, for this, for making her birthday special. I didn't do much, just showed up with a gift. You did more than that. He leaned against the railing, looking out at the parking lot below. She's happy, really happy, and part of that is because of you. Adriana was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? And I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Do you regret letting me back in, even a little bit? The question hung in the air between them. He could have lied, could have given her the easy answer, but she'd asked for honesty, and after everything, she deserved that much. Sometimes, he admitted, not because you're bad for Maya, but because I don't know what happens next. You're dying, Adriana, and at some point, probably sooner than any of us want, you're going to be gone, and Maya's going to have to deal with losing someone important to her. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing by setting her up for that kind of pain. Would you rather she never knew me at all? I don't know. Maybe. At least then she wouldn't have to grieve someone she cared about. Adriana turned to face him fully. Ethan, everyone dies. That's not unique to me. The only difference is I know approximately when. But you could get hit by a car tomorrow, or I could somehow beat the odds and last longer than the doctors think. We don't get guarantees. All we get is right now, this moment, and the choice of whether we spend it afraid of what might happen or grateful for what is happening. That's easy to say when you're not the one who has to pick up the pieces. You're right. It is easy to say, and maybe I'm being selfish. Maybe I'm thinking more about what I need than what's best for Maya. But I don't think loving someone is ever a mistake, even if it ends badly. I think the love itself is worth it. He wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the ways that love could destroy a person. He had the scars to prove it. But looking at her now, backlit by the dim glow from the apartment, he couldn't quite make himself say the words. "I'm scared," he said instead. "Of this. Of you. Of what it means that I'm starting to trust you again. I'm scared too. Of running out of time before I can make things right. Of dying and leaving you both behind with nothing but regrets and unfinished conversations." "Then let's finish the conversation." He pushed off the railing, facing her directly. 10 years ago, I was going to propose. I had the ring picked out, had this whole plan about taking you to that park you loved and doing it at sunset, and then you were gone. And I spent years wondering if you somehow knew, if that's why you left. Like you could sense it coming, and you ran. Adriana's eyes went bright with unshed tears. "I didn't know. If I had known—" She stopped, shook her head. "I don't know what I would have done differently. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I didn't know." "Would you have said yes, if I'd asked?" "Yes, without hesitation. Even knowing what I knew about my family, about the danger. I would have said yes and dealt with the consequences later. Which is probably why it's good you never got the chance to ask." The admission should have made him angry, should have reinforced every wall he'd built over the past decade. Instead, it just made him tired. Tired of holding grudges, tired of protecting himself, tired of pretending that having her here didn't feel right in ways he couldn't explain. "I don't know how to do this," he said quietly. "How to let you in without losing myself again. Maybe you don't let me in. Maybe we both just stay here in this weird in-between space and figure it out as we go." That's not exactly a plan. No, but it's honest. And right now, honesty is all I've got. The sliding door opened and Maya poked her head out. "Daddy, I'm ready for bed." He turned, grateful for the interruption. "I'll be right there, baby girl." She disappeared back inside and Adriana started gathering her things. "I should go. Let you do bedtime." "Adriana, wait." He caught her arm gently. "This thing we're doing, whatever it is, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that when it gets bad, when the headaches get worse or the doctors change the timeline, you'll tell me. Not because I need to know, but because Maya will need to know. She deserves to prepare herself, to say goodbye properly, if that's what it comes to." Her face crumpled slightly, but she held it together. "I promise. When the time comes, I'll tell you both. No disappearing act this time." "Good." She left, and he went inside to tuck Maya in. His daughter was already half asleep, but she smiled when he sat on the edge of her bed. "Best birthday ever," she murmured. "I'm glad, baby girl." "Daddy, do you think Miss Vale is lonely?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would you think that?" "Because she's always by herself when she comes over. And she gets this look sometimes, like she's sad but trying not to show it. I just think she might need friends." "She has us." "I know, but maybe she needs more than just us. Maybe she needs lots of people." Out of the mouths of children. Maya had no idea how right she was. Adriana had burned down her entire world to be free, and in the process, she'd left herself with nothing but money and time running out. "You might be right," he said. "I'll think about it." Maya nodded sleepily and curled around her stuffed elephant. Within minutes, she was out completely, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and a growing realization that he couldn't keep Adriana at arm's length forever. Something had to give. Either he needed to commit to having her in their lives fully, or he needed to end this before they all got in too deep. The decision came 2 weeks later, though not in any way he'd anticipated. He was at work when his phone rang. Unknown number, but he answered anyway because Maya was at school and unknown numbers during school hours usually meant something was wrong. "Mr. Cole? This is Principal Matthews from Jefferson Elementary." His heart dropped. "Is Maya okay?" "Maya's fine, but we had an incident today that I think you should know about." "Can you come to the school?" He was in his truck within 5 minutes, Thompson yelling after him about schedules and inspectors. He didn't care. If Maya was involved in an incident serious enough for the principal to call, Everything else could wait. The school's front office was quiet when he arrived, just the secretary and Principal Matthews waiting for him. Through the window of the principal's office, he could see Maya sitting in a chair, and next to her, Adriana. "What's going on?" he demanded. Principal Matthews gestured for him to follow her into the office. "Please, have a seat." He sat next to Maya, who looked more confused than upset. Adriana looked pale, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. "Maya's not in trouble," the principal started, "but we had a situation in the cafeteria today. Ms. Vale was here for her regular volunteer shift, and she had what appeared to be a seizure. Maya was nearby and immediately ran to get help. She potentially saved Ms. Vale's life by acting so quickly." The words took a moment to sink in. "A seizure?" "The paramedics said it was likely related to her medical condition," Principal Matthews continued carefully. "They wanted to transport her to the hospital, but Ms. Vale refused. She listed you as her emergency contact, Mr. Cole. I wanted to make sure you were aware of the situation." Ethan looked at Adriana, who wouldn't meet his eyes. "You listed me as your emergency contact?" "I didn't have anyone else," she said quietly. "What about your lawyers, your doctors? Anyone from your company? They're employees, not emergency contacts. There's a difference." Principal Matthews cleared her throat. "I'll give you all a moment. Maya, why don't you come with me to the front office? We'll call Mrs. Chen to pick you up since your dad is here dealing with this." Maya looked between them, clearly not wanting to leave, but she went with the principal when Ethan nodded his permission. The door clicked shut, leaving them alone. "When were you going to tell me it was getting worse?" His voice came out harder than he intended. "It's not getting worse. This was just a bad day." "Don't lie to me. We had a deal. Honesty, remember?" She finally looked at him, and the exhaustion in her face was overwhelming. "Fine. It's getting worse, faster than the doctors expected. The headaches are constant now, and the seizures started last month. Small ones, usually. This was the first big one. And you didn't think I needed to know this?" "I didn't want to worry you." "Worry me? Adriana, my daughter, watched you have a seizure. She's 9 years old and she had to run for help because the woman who's been spending time with us collapsed in the middle of the school cafeteria. You don't think that's something I should have been prepared for?" "You're right. You're absolutely right. I should have told you." Tears were streaming down her face now. "But I didn't want this to be over yet. I didn't want you to pull away because I'm getting sicker. I wanted just a little more time pretending like everything was normal." His anger deflated. "Nothing about this is normal. Nothing about any of this has ever been normal." "I know. And you can't keep making decisions about what I need to know. That's not how this works." "I know that too." He scrubbed his hands over his face, trying to organize his thoughts. "Okay. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything, every detail about your condition, what the doctors have said, what the timeline looks like. No more secrets, no more edited versions. Full truth." "Okay. And then we're going to figure out a plan. Because if you're going to be around Maya, I need to know what to expect, how to prepare her for what's coming." Adriana nodded, wiping her face. "The seizures are going to get more frequent. The headaches won't stop. Eventually, I'll start losing motor function, speech, memory. The doctors give me 6 months before I need round-the-clock care. Maybe a year before—" She couldn't finish the sentence. 6 months. Not 4 years like she'd said before, not even 2 years. 6 months before she'd be unable to function independently, and probably not much longer after that before the end. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. For coming back, for disrupting your lives, for making Maya care about me when I knew this was how it would end. Stop apologizing. I can't. This is my fault. All of it. It's not your fault you're sick. It's not your fault those people hurt you. The only thing that's your fault is not being honest with me." He stood, started pacing the small office. 6 months. "Okay. We can work with 6 months. What do you mean?" "I mean Maya deserves to know the truth. Not all of it. She's 9. She doesn't need the gruesome details. But she needs to know that you're sick, that you're not going to get better, and that we're going to make the most of the time we have. She deserves to say goodbye properly." "You're not cutting me off?" He stopped pacing, looked at her directly. "I should. It would be smarter, safer, easier for everyone if I just ended this now and saved Maya from the pain of watching you die. But that's not what she'd want. And despite everything, it's not what I want either." "Ethan, let me finish. 10 years ago, you left because you thought you were protecting me. You made that choice without me, and it was the wrong choice. I won't make the same mistake. Maya cares about you, and I... He stopped, forced himself to say it. I care about you too. Still. Again. I don't know which, but it's true. And if we only have 6 months, I'd rather spend them together than spend them regretting that we didn't try. She stood, crossed the space between them, and before he could second-guess it, she wrapped her arms around him. He stiffened for half a second, then let himself return the embrace. She felt smaller than he remembered, more fragile, like she might break if he held too tight. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank you for not giving up on me. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be hard. Probably the hardest thing any of us have done, and I can't promise I won't mess it up. Nobody's asking for perfect. Just present. Just real. I can do real. They stood like that for a long moment, and something shifted between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but something close. An understanding that the past was done and couldn't be changed, but the future, however short, was still theirs to write. When they pulled apart, Principal Matthews knocked lightly before entering. Everything all right? Yeah, Ethan said. We're good. Is Maya still here? Mrs. Chen picked her up about 10 minutes ago. She said to tell you she'll keep her for the afternoon if you need time to sort things out. Thanks. I appreciate it. He drove Adriana home. She'd taken an Uber to the school that morning, planning to drive herself home, but clearly in no condition to do so now. Her apartment was exactly what he'd expected. Sleek, modern, expensive, and completely devoid of personality. Like a hotel room rather than a home. You really live here? He asked, looking around at the pristine furniture and bare walls. I sleep here. I wouldn't call it living. She sank onto the couch with visible relief. I spent so many years focused on taking down my family that I never bothered building anything for myself. This is what's left. Empty space and money I don't know what to do with. He sat down next to her, maintaining a careful distance. 6 months is still time. You could fix that. Make this place feel like home. I don't think I know how anymore. Then we'll figure it out. You, me, Maya, we'll make the next 6 months count. She looked at him with something like hope. You really mean that? I do. But we're doing this my way. No more secrets, no more expensive gifts to make up for lost time, no more pretending everything's fine when it's not. Just honesty. Can you do that? Yes, I promise. Good. Then tomorrow we sit Maya down and explain what's happening. Age appropriate, but honest. She needs to understand. What if she gets scared? What if she doesn't want to be around me anymore? Then we deal with that. But I think you're underestimating her. She's tougher than she looks. That conversation with Maya was one of the hardest things Ethan had ever done. They sat her down in the living room after dinner, both of them on the couch, while Maya curled up in the armchair with Dumpling clutched to her chest. Am I in trouble? She asked nervously. No, baby girl, you're not in trouble. We just need to talk to you about something important. Ethan glanced at Adriana, who nodded for him to continue. You know how Ms. Vale got sick at school today?
Yeah, it was really scary. I know it was. And I'm proud of you for getting help so fast. That was really brave. He took a breath. The thing is, Ms. Vale is sick, really sick, and she's not going to get better. Maya's forehead wrinkled. What do you mean?
Adriana leaned forward. It means I have something wrong in my brain, sweetheart, and the doctors can't fix it. So over the next few months, I'm going to get sicker. I might have more seizures like today. I might get too tired to do all the things we usually do together. Are you going to die? The question was small, scared.
Yes, eventually, but not right away. I still have time. Time to spend with you and your dad. Time to watch more stars through your telescope. Time to make more memories. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. I don't want you to die. I know, honey. I don't want to either, but sometimes we don't get to choose these things. Maya looked at Ethan, her face crumpling. Daddy? He opened his arms, and she launched herself at him, sobbing into his shoulder. He held her tight, making eye contact with Adriana over his daughter's head. She looked devastated, tears streaming down her own face. It's okay to be sad, he said to Maya. It's okay to cry. This is really hard news. Why does everyone I love have to leave? Maya choked out between sobs. First Mommy, now Ms. Vale. It's not fair. You're right.
It's not fair. Not even a little bit.
Can't the doctors do something? Can't we help her? The doctors are doing everything they can, and we can help by making sure Ms. Vale knows how much we care about her, by spending time with her and making her happy while we still can. Maya pulled back, wiping her face. I want to spend all my time with her, every day after school, every weekend, all of it. Adriana smiled through her tears. That sounds perfect to me.
And so they did. The next 6 months became a blur of intentional moments and borrowed time. Adriana quit her job. She had enough money that it didn't matter, and she wanted to spend her remaining energy on things that counted. They fell into a routine. Adriana picked Maya up from school most days. They'd work on homework together, and then Ethan would join them for dinner when he got off work. Weekends became sacred. They went to museums, took day trips to the beach, even though it was getting too cold to swim, watched movies, cooked elaborate meals that usually turned out mediocre but tasted perfect because they'd made them together. The telescope became their tradition. Every clear night, they'd set it up and explore the sky. Adriana taught Maya the stories behind the constellations, the myths and legends that people had been telling for thousands of years. Maya ate it up, always asking for one more story, one more planet. Slowly, things changed between Ethan and Adriana too. The anger he'd carried for so long faded, replaced by something gentler. They started texting throughout the day, nothing important, just small observations and inside jokes. She started leaving spare clothes at his apartment for the nights when she was too tired to drive home. He started keeping her favorite tea stocked, even though he hated the way it smelled. One night, about 3 months in, Maya fell asleep on the couch between them during a movie. Ethan carried her to bed, and when he came back, Adriana was still there, looking exhausted but content. "You should go home. Get some rest," he said. "I'm tired of going home to that empty apartment. Can I just stay here tonight, on the couch? I promise I won't be in the way."
You're never in the way. The words came out without thought, but he meant them. Stay, but take the bed. I'll take the couch. Ethan, I can't. Yes, you can. You need actual rest, not whatever you get from sleeping on that thing. He gestured at the lumpy couch. She was too tired to argue. She took his bed, and he took the couch, and it should have been awkward, but it wasn't. It felt right in a way that scared him and comforted him in equal measure. By month 4, Adriana was having seizures weekly. She'd lost weight, moved slower, needed help with things she used to do without thinking. But she never complained, just kept showing up, kept being present, kept making Maya laugh, even on the days when Ethan could see the pain written across her face. Maya handled it better than he'd expected. She was scared sometimes, especially after witnessing a seizure, but she was also resilient. She'd make Adriana tea, bring her blankets, read to her when the headaches were too bad for Adriana to focus on words. "You're so good at taking care of people," Adriana told her one afternoon. "You're going to make a wonderful doctor someday, or nurse, or whatever you decide to be." "I want to be an astronaut," Maya said seriously, "so I can go see all those stars we've been looking at." "Then you'll be an amazing astronaut." Month 5 brought harder conversations. Adriana's doctors recommended she start transitioning to full-time care. She fought it at first, wanting to maintain independence as long as possible, but her body wasn't cooperating. The seizures were lasting longer, the recovery taking more out of her. Ethan made the decision for her. "Move in with us." They were sitting in her sterile apartment, the same one that had never felt like home, and she stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "What?" "Move in. We'll clear out the storage room, make it into a bedroom. It's small, but it's enough. And this way you're not alone when things get bad. This way Maya gets to see you every day, and I can help when you need it." "Ethan, that's too much. I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering. We're in this together now, remember? So stop trying to do everything alone and let me help." She cried. Big, messy sobs that racked her whole body. And he held her, the same way he'd held Maya during that first conversation, and told her it would be okay, even though they both knew it wouldn't be. Moving her in took 2 days. She didn't have much. Most of her furniture stayed with the apartment, and she donated most of her expensive clothes to charity. What she kept fit into a few boxes and 2 suitcases, evidence of a life lived on the edges, never quite settling, never quite belonging. But in his tiny apartment, surrounded by Maya's chaos and his own controlled disorder, she started to belong. Her books mixed with theirs on the shelf. Her favorite mug appeared in the cabinet.
Her laugh filled the spaces that had been quiet for too long. Maya was thrilled. Having Adriana there all the time meant morning conversations before school, help with homework without having to wait, late-night whispered conversations about stars and space and what might exist beyond what they could see. And Ethan found himself relaxing in ways he hadn't in years. Coming home to Adriana and Maya cooking dinner together, terribly and with too much flour everywhere. Finding them both asleep on the couch after a movie night, Maya's head on Adriana's shoulder. Small moments that felt impossibly precious because they were finite. Month 6 arrived too fast. Adriana was barely mobile now, the seizures coming multiple times a day, the headaches constant. She'd lost the ability to read. The words jumbled, refused to make sense. But she could still listen, still talk, still be present in the ways that mattered. They celebrated Christmas early, in November, because nobody knew if she'd make it to December. Maya made decorations out of construction paper, and they strung them around Adriana's room. Ethan cooked a turkey that came out dry, and they ate it anyway, laughing about how bad it was. "This is perfect," Adriana said, her speech slightly slurred now, but still understandable. "All of this. Perfect." "The turkey is objectively terrible," Ethan pointed out. "I don't care about the turkey. I care about this, us, together. That's what's perfect." Maya climbed into her lap, carefully, always so careful now, and hugged her. "I love you, Ms. Vale." "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." "I love you too," Ethan said, the words coming easier now. In case that wasn't clear, Adriana met his eyes across the table. "It's clear. And I love you, both of you. You gave me something I never thought I'd have, a family, a real one. Thank you for that. You're welcome, but you're stuck with us now. No takebacks." She laughed, and it sounded like hope. The end came on a Tuesday in early December. Ethan woke up to silence. No sounds of movement from Adriana's room, no soft music she usually played in the mornings. He got up, checked on Maya first, still asleep, peaceful, then knocked gently on Adriana's door. No response. He opened it slowly. She was in bed, eyes closed, chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. But something was different, wrong. "Adriana?" He touched her shoulder gently. "Hey, you okay?" Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. When she spoke, the words were garbled, incomprehensible. A stroke, maybe, or just the final progression of the damage that had been slowly destroying her brain. He called 911, kept his voice calm even though his hands were shaking. The paramedics arrived within minutes, and he rode with her to the hospital, leaving Maya with Mrs. Chen and a hastily scribbled note about an emergency. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and machines and doctors using words like end stage and comfort measures and days, maybe hours. He called Maya from the hospital room, put her on speaker so Adriana could hear, even if she couldn't respond. "Hi, Ms. Vale." Maya's voice was small, scared. "Daddy says you're really sick. Are you going to be okay?" Adriana's eyes tracked to the phone, even if she couldn't answer. "I love you," Maya continued, "and I'm going to keep looking at the stars, just like you taught me. I'm going to remember all the stories. I promise." A single tear tracked down Adriana's face. "You should rest now," Ethan said gently to both of them. "Maya, I'll be home soon. Be good for Mrs. Chen." "Okay." "Tell Ms. Vale I love her again." "I will." He hung up and took Adriana's hand. It was so small in his, so fragile. "She loves you. We both do. And I need you to know these past 6 months have been some of the best of my life. You came back and you gave us this gift of time and presence and love. I forgive you for everything, for leaving, for the secrets, for all of it. I forgive you." Her fingers squeezed his, just barely, but enough. She died that night, quietly, with Ethan holding her hand and telling her stories about Maya's latest obsession with black holes. It wasn't dramatic. There was no last gasp or sudden peace. She just stopped breathing, and the machine started beeping, and that was it. The funeral was small. Ethan, Maya, Mrs. Chen, a few people from the school. They held it at the park where they'd had Maya's birthday party, under the open sky. Maya read a poem she'd written about stars, and how people became them when they died. It wasn't scientifically accurate, but it was beautiful. Ethan stood with his arm around his daughter and looked up at the sky, already darkening with evening. Somewhere up there were the stars they'd watched together, the planets they'd found through the telescope, the vast expanse that Adriana had helped Maya fall in love with. Is she really a star now? Maya asked quietly. I don't know, baby girl, but I think she'd like that idea. Me too. They stood there until the first stars appeared, and Ethan thought about second chances and forgiveness, and how sometimes the hardest thing was letting people in when you knew they'd eventually leave. But Adriana had been right that night on the balcony. The love itself was worth it. The pain of losing her was real and sharp, and would probably never fully go away, but the 6 months they'd had together, the laughter, the late nights, the sense of being a family, that was worth it too. Come on, he said finally. Let's go home. Okay. Can we look through the telescope tonight? Yeah, we can do that. They walked to the truck together, and as Ethan helped Maya into her seat, she said something that made his throat tight. I'm glad she came back, even though it hurts now. I'm glad we got to know her. Me too, baby girl. Me too. That night, they set up the telescope on the balcony like always. Maya found Jupiter first, then Saturn, then pointed the lens toward a cluster of stars she couldn't name but thought were beautiful. There, she said. I think that one's her, the bright one in the middle. Ethan looked through the telescope, saw the star she meant. It probably wasn't anything special, just one of billions, but it was bright and steady, and somehow felt right. Yeah, he said. I think you're right. They stayed out there for hours, taking turns with the telescope, talking about everything and nothing. And somewhere in the midst of it, Ethan realized that Adriana had given them something beyond just her presence. She'd taught them that it was okay to love people even when loving them was scary. That taking risks on broken things sometimes led to the most beautiful outcomes. That forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, it was about choosing to move forward anyway. The apartment felt different after she was gone. Emptier in some ways, fuller in others. Her room stayed mostly unchanged. Maya couldn't bear to pack it up yet, and Ethan didn't push. Eventually they'd deal with it, sort through her things, decide what to keep and what to let go. But not yet. For now, they just lived. Kept going to school and work, kept having pancakes at Rosie's on Fridays, kept looking at the stars every clear night. The grief was there, would probably always be there in some form, but so was the gratitude. For the time they'd had, for the love they'd shared, for the way Adriana had walked back into their lives and changed everything. One night, about a month after the funeral, Maya fell asleep during their telescope time. Ethan carried her inside and tucked her in, and when he came back out to put the telescope away, he stood there for a moment looking up at the sky. Thank you, he said quietly to the stars, to Adriana, to whoever might be listening. Thank you for coming back, for being brave enough to try again, for teaching us that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. The stars didn't answer, but then again, they didn't need to. The truth was already written in the life they'd built together, in the memories they'd made, in the fact that broken things could be pieced back together in ways that were different from before, but still whole. He packed up the telescope and went inside, closing the door on the night, but not on what it represented. Because that was the thing about love and loss and second chances. They didn't cancel each other out. They coexisted, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it. And as Ethan checked on Maya one last time before bed, watching her sleep peacefully with Dumpling clutched to her chest and a smile on her face, he knew that whatever pain the future held, they'd face it the way Adriana had taught them. Together. Honestly. With eyes wide open to both the beauty and the hurt, because that's what it meant to really live. The past couldn't be changed. The future couldn't be guaranteed. But this moment, right now, with his daughter safe and loved and carrying the memory of a woman who'd fought her way back to them, this was enough. This was everything, and it was theirs.